knowing how far Endwalker was able to push the envelope, and that like, remember that like Sastasha and stuff is already terrible. So like the game started out taking on some terrible stuff.
I don't think we're gonna see Clive's cock in this. I don't think that they're gonna go in that way. But I do feel like they're gonna like obviously have more like alluding and you know like different angles, etc. More innuendo.
Yeah. Butt slider.
Butt slider. Oh, like boob slider. Jiggle physics. What's going on, workforce? Brian and
Chris.
Hey, actually like in real time, right here physically together. And what we thought we'd actually do in this video, we're going to be filming a kind of a series like this. So hopefully you guys look forward to some of these discussion reactions we're going to be doing in real time. Chris has not seen the Final Fantasy XVI trailer at all. I texted him, I go, hey, have you seen that? And he said, not yet. I was like, don't watch it. Let's watch it together because we're going to film some stuff right here together in the Brian office. And then I think next week I'm going to be down in his office. And we're just going to be bouncing back and forth and hopefully coming up with some good stuff. So hopefully you guys enjoy. I've seen it, so it's going to be kind of more his reaction. And we're kind of going to discuss what ultimately we can kind of glean and what we learn. And I'm generally curious as what Chris thinks about 16, Yoshi P being the producer here. Is he nervous? Is he excited? Actually, before we watch it, like...
We don't know anything. Like, as of before we watch this, as of right now, I know there is a game... 16's the number.
Yeah.
Yoshi P's involved, and people are like, greatest game of all time.
Okay.
Like we don't like. How's the combat system? It's gonna be great.
It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, but like, tell me about it. Great.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great.
What
about like the story? What's it about?
Yeah.
It's gonna be good.
Do you like sex?
It's gonna be a good story.
Yes. Okay.
It's gonna be a good story.
It's gonna be a good story.
Oh, but long story, short story, just good. All we know right now is it's gonna be good because we've determined that.
We have willed it into being.
we have willed it into
When are we
being.
playing 16? When are we playing? What do you think?
When it is good.
When it is ready.
This is a Square Enix announcement. That means sometime between...
Pick a season, pick a year.
June 2nd of 2022 and winter of 2030. That's my range.
Okay.
I'll just slide it in there. You heard it here first.
He's not wrong. I could say right now, you're not wrong at all.
Did they give us a season and year?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was like going to see. Like, you want to pick a season in a year?
Wow.
It's not 2030.
I think they would announce fall of next year and hit spring of the following. Fall of 23, spring of 24 is what actually releases.
Let's find out if he's right. If you've already seen the trailer, you know. Let's see. But you're gonna have to stick to his reaction and see what he thinks. All right, let's dive into it. And at any moment you want to pause, you just hit that space, and I'll pause maybe at something in that regards.
I'm bummed there's no like in a world.
In a world.
Who are we? What are the dominants? The power we wield. It wears away at our very being. It breaks us. It unmakes us. That its immaculate aspect might reveal itself. The icon.
Could that be in-game graphics, by the way? Like, can we ever live in a world where that's straight up in-game graphics?
I feel like that is straight up in-game graphics.
Because, like, watching World of Warcraft Dragonflight stuff.
Okay.
Phenomenal cinematics. World of Warcraft is beautiful at cinematics. Final Fantasy XIV, right. Picture the trailer going into Endwalker when they first showed it. Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, don't get me wrong. Endwalker is a beautiful game. It's not the Endwalker trailer.
Yeah.
The Endwalker trailer is at a fidelity that is just way above. But that's a limitation of MMOs. They have to be able to run on somebody's microwave. So, like, you have to hold that back. And people are like, console players, console... No. I realize that PC is a huge spectrum. The bottom of PCs, somebody is running a PC that, like, still has a CD-ROM drive.
Somewhere in this world.
Somewhere
Not even the
world.
DVD ROM.
Yeah.
Not even a writer.
just the drive. So...
I'm curious because you paused it here. And did you notice anything about that specific spot where you paused? We'll come back to it. Come back to it.
No
This is in-game, dude. This is all in-game graphics. Wow.
Kind of makes The Witcher look old.
They're going with it. I feel a Witcher vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I told you there's sex.
You should be as said in Final Fantasy XIV, it's incredibly frustrating to want to tell stories and have to take things off screen because of the M rating.
Yeah.
How dirty do you think those thoughts in the writing teams are? Like, how far
I don't think
would
it's-
they take it?
I don't think it's gonna like be in that sense of dirtiness, but it's a sense of realism, right? Like,
Sure.
I would say when you look at
The grit,
Witcher, when
the
you look at
violence
even outside of the
is missing.
outside of how like obviously Game of Thrones ended, but outside of that, you look at The Witcher, it's like there are things like it's like we want to tell these stories. Like you look at Robin, he had to get his like arm cut off in like a unique way so that they could stick within the teen rating, and
Right.
it doesn't necessarily mean like it's going to be all raunch and filth, but when you start talking about these political aspects of these kingdoms, right? Like take Triangle Strategy, you haven't played it yet, but there's so much intrigue of like, okay, we're going to marry this person to this person because that's going to create an alliance, and then it turns out like they're like there's complications that come with that because so it's like there's all this history and there's all this like vying for power and etc. And so there's all that intrigue, and it's a part of those stories is a part of like our human history involve that, it's, and so when you have to sit here and be like, you kind of take that off the table, you do limit some motivations. And that's why I feel like when you start to try to tell that kind of story, if all of a sudden you like, well, we can't talk about it this way, we have to come up with another way of delivering it, ultimately like it's a struggle. So I'm excited because I while I'm not I don't want Final Fantasy 16 to be a porno, but I want it to be able to tell like, here's some character interactions. And yes, that like this is something. I'm an adult. Final Fantasy XIV has this. Has people have aged with this game. I think they kind of expect it. Like you're holding Final Fantasy back by holding it to a teen rating. You don't have to force it to be an M-rated game, unless you want it to be an M-rated game and tell an M-rated story.
But look at what it's done with a T rating. Look at, we have addressed sexual assault. We have addressed things involving children. We've addressed serious violence.
Yeah.
In everything from like an intimate to a genocide scale. We have, so like within T for Teen, like it has not stopped them from taking on moments that have made us cry, have made us angry, have made us feel gross. So I have to ask, like when when you say like The Witcher, and then you mention Game of Thrones, those took that adult rating very differently. Like,
yeah.
The Witcher is a TV show. Yeah, there are sensual scenes, but like there's also like a level of filth, like just even in just the grime of the streets and the grittiness of the combat.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Game of Thrones takes a lot more literally as like, X rating. I think Game of Thrones takes a lot more in that HBO direction. I don't know. I'm just interested to see what a Final Fantasy game looks like, knowing how far Endwalker was able to push the envelope, and that like, remember that like Sastasha and stuff is already terrible. So like the game started out taking on some terrible stuff.
I don't think we're gonna see Clive's cock in this. I don't think that they're gonna go in that way. But I do feel like they're gonna like obviously have more like alluding and like different angles, etc. More innuendo.
Yeah. Butt slider.
Butt slider.
Excellent.
Oh, like boob slider. Jiggle physics.
strife and found a new order to see us unto tomorrow. If I take the field
See, like bloody. Look at that guy.
to its foundations,
This is what games looked like in my head as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, Odin right there.
They don't hold up.
Bahamut.
there will be losses, it is true. Yet for every citizen who falls, another can be bred. For every home that burns, another can be built.
So Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
I will live on.
Phoenix. Hayden.
Yes.
Ruda.
Yes. Oh, that is awesome. It's so Final Fantasy.
Feels good, dude.
Like, you think of 14 as fan service?
Child of fate. Awaken. If free.
Bold. Yeah. Bold strategy, Cod.
Bold.
I'm going to walk you through it. We're going to change the kind of
I
our
didn't
view.
think it would be. I didn't think it.
We'll have to see. I honestly, like, Yoshi P's already said that they've pretty much finished, and this is just polish and bug fixing. So that he wanted to sit here and say, hey, this is when it is. This is when it's coming. And outside of another global pandemic and shutting down Japan, I think that's a reasonable time frame so that they can actually be completely ready to deliver the full product. So now I kind of want to jump into the trailer again with you. And we're going to do a couple more little pauses and things that I noticed. One of the things, just to start, because I missed this a couple times from the, and this will actually have a big impact. I missed this like 3 or 4 times. Somebody called it out in the comments. That's Ifrit fighting Ifrit. And that is in and of itself can completely change how, at least what we've known and what we've seen from this, how the game is currently structured. So, all right, let's go and watch it again. I'm going to do some more pausing, and I'm going to kind of highlight some things to you, and you
If
can
we,
let
the
me know.
player, get to summon primals, there is something weird when you come across an enemy NPC that can summon primals, and you end up in this weird Ifrit versus Ifrit. Can you do that?
Yeah, and it seems like, at least from this, unless it's some kind of nightmarish dream or some big tease, you know, that is something that's going to happen.
Do you think Ifrit's good at beating Ifrit?
I would assume so. But I mean,
Weak.
weak fire.
Fire versus fire.
So obviously you see that girl, and that is essentially her again, and we've seen her as a character a couple times, like in the trailer. She seems to be kind of that one, you know, maybe you would call it, she obviously has the power of Garuda. You start to see the colors, and then as you start to see kind of the wings kind of burst out forth from her. These summons look just amazing, dude. There's Bahamut. And they've shown us 8 summons, 8 icons, and the scale of Titan to the people is just wild. All right, I'm going to pause here. When I said, did you notice anything interesting about this scene? I'm going to give you a second, and I'll call it out if you can't see
What's
it.
the red dot by the moon?
Exactly. That's the question that I was like, what is going on with that? That seems very connected to Final Fantasy XIV, because that's how it was. There was the Red Mood Dalma. Now, I don't know if there's going to be any kind of connection into 14 into that, but how wild would that be? So I wonder if it's something, because this is an interesting scene. You got the 2 characters, just beauty. You can see the mounds over there in the
Look at how
distance.
tall those handrails are.
Oh yeah, you don't want anybody falling off. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting.
Kids can squeeze right through.
Yeah. So when you start talking about kind of like the battle system in and of itself, this is obviously, it seems maybe kind of like a boss level 18, and you can start to see you have Phoenix and you have Shiva right here, and it looks like this is kind of, maybe this is like a cutscene or something where you have to kind of hit buttons, etc., as you kind of dive into the combat. But now we can start to see even more combat aspects. So you see here Phoenix shift,
Yes.
fire, attack, jump, and on the D-pad, potion, high potion, strength potion. I think that's just fascinating. And now something when it, like, as he goes into the
his
mode,
rotation.
Scarlet Cyclone, Rising Flames, having kind of that icon strike aspect. So you have this connection with the icons themselves that then seem to evolve into kind of almost like a limit break, you know, form. See it as you see here. Look up here in the upper left
Titan.
hand.
Yeah.
They switched. The limit break bar is filling up. Now it's full. You got
They're
Odin.
jumping between all sorts of rotations down there.
Yeah. Oh, sexy. That looked like Garuda, the lady who plays Garuda.
What was that map? I don't know if that was somewhere we are, or if that was.
This kind of somewhat symbolizes what we've seen actually in some of the artwork as a part of kind of the that Yoshi P released when they originally said, "Hey, we're working on another game," and that kind of seems to align with some of the art, like the setup that we saw in that image.
Can you imagine if a physical collector's edition came with one?
That'd be cool. I like maps, so like I would like whenever they've released a collector. So that guy's obviously Titan. Now you see icons themselves fighting each other.
I do wonder, some of that, the way it paused to kind of pop up and say, like, Shiva Ice or whatever that said, does make me wonder if that's a very, like, Final Fantasy X, like, you enter an animation state. Because it's not,
Right.
It's not MMO, so it's not, like, real time necessarily. We can pause the whole fight, as opposed to, like, you can't pause an alliance raid every
Right,
time.
'cause everybody
every
else-
time some summoner, like, hits their favorite thing, and we all have to stop, and it's like,
Yeah.
that would be impossible.
Don't do what I'm doing. My rotation, you're throwing me off.
Yeah. Right there. That mega flare?
Yeah.
That looks like an animation, like a mid-combat animation. So good.
Music, dude. You see Ifrit and Phoenix kind of fighting off against each other. Man, that gets my blood pumping. It gets my blood pumping, dude.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So, now that you've seen the trailer and we kind of walked through some of the battle systems and we have obviously a targeted release date,
Yeah.
like what are you feeling about 16 going into it? Did you learn anything about the game in and of itself? What's your general thought?
I'm really excited to have something that's not a spring or winter release.
Yeah.
I just assume that's when all companies target things, and summer is always by accident. That's just what I assume.
Yeah.
And it's like, you guys realize releasing everything in the same week in March or whatever
February
is not
this year.
great for us.
Yeah.
Like we have like a 4-week window that we're supposed to try to avoid spoilers on games that we know we're not going to get to for months because we have other games. So first of all, thank you for summer. Hope they stick to it. I think the combat system got more fleshed out there than anything we've seen so far.
Yeah.
We still don't really, like, from a story perspective, I don't really want to know
Right.
anything. So, like, it's not a bad thing, but it's still very, very vague.
Combat and systems are something that, like, I'm absolutely will be happy to learn about. But when it comes down to the story, like, I think the general setting and lore, we already have some of that already put in place. I think it sets itself up quite nicely. I'm looking forward to learning more about the characters, but I'm ready to play. And the fact that we have summer, this actually leads into my kind of final question for this video, is that now that we know when 16 is generally coming out, that would be
They confirm
June,
platforms.
July, August. PS, they don't in this video showed it the state of play. Originally it said PC, PS5, but you and I haven't been able to locate PS5s at all. And in a year's time, maybe that changes. Maybe all of a sudden PS5s are to be found. But imagine if it comes out summer 2023 on PS5 only and you can't get it. They did announce that Spider-Man's coming to PC, so Sony is definitely saying, like, yeah, PC, but I'm wondering if it is timed exclusive to the console. The only issue is that there might be people who can't find it. But now I want to shift to the question really about also 14 in our schedule, because they have Forspoken that's set to come out this fall as on PS5 from Square Enix. 14, we were assuming 6.2 is in August, but you would
6.3 is around the end of the year.
yeah.
So that puts 6.4 in kind of
April,
that
May.
April, May time frame. They get looser the further out
Right.
you go, because if anything shifts,
Because that would fit the summer of
and so
June,
this,
July.
So this slides out during 6.4.
Yeah. Well, actually,
Which-
before, after 6.4, before 6.5.
Assuming we go back to 3 physical fan fests,
Mhm.
which we've heard nothing about.
Right.
FanFest would likely be announced around the November timeframe in the live letters going into 6.3.
Yeah.
And NA, assuming NA continues to go first, so we get the trailer and the name reveal, and then they do EU, JP, in whatever order, second and third. Assuming NA goes first, we likely would have already seen the NA Fan Fest, looking down the barrel, or just coming out of the second Fan Fest, going into this. And then I assume that puts, this comes out summer, which is, I mean, seasons are always wide. They're like, yeah, summer. That's
Summer.
anything from like February to November. And then hopefully people have kind of like gotten their fill of this when we go into the expansion and they're not competing. And we're sitting in 7.0. Then you gap out, right? So there's plenty of content from the 0.0 to get to 0.1. There's plenty of content from 0.1 to hold you over for a bit. But people are noticing now, by the time you get to a 0.15, if this is somebody's 0.15, if this is their first time, that's when you start to go,
Yeah.
I have some free time.
Yeah.
And they're either frustrated at that, or they're like, oh, this is great, I'm gonna go discover. And hopefully, like at that point, if this is gonna have, that's my next question, is does this have a DLC? Because if this has DLC, you time it with one. And assuming that the only game they're developing to put this with is for 14, it would be really great if it had a DLC 6 to 8 months after.
Yeah, summer I think is going to be actually quite perfect, because if, from the 14's timing perspective, you literally could say like it could slot between 6.4 and 6.5, which then 6.5 would carry you in, which could put 7.0 at the end of 2023, or have that shift into early 2024, which I think that would actually be kind of ideal.
They didn't say 0.6, but what if
They never have.
They never have.
But yeah, who knows? Like, well, ultimately, like, guys, what you guys think on that one?
So then,
That's
when does the next Witcher game? Because they're working on the next Witcher game, right? So like we're comparing this to 14 because we talk about 14 a lot.
Yeah.
But when you look at more direct comparisons,
I think this is easily out before another
This
Witcher.
is much like another God of War or another. This is competing with the God of Wars and the the Elden Rings. These moments that like they take over everybody's mind. There are some people that continue to perfect them and hit them and all these great things, but the majority of the player population kind of moves on for a bit, unless there's seasonal DLCs or something.
Hopefully not. Like, I want them, especially after 15, I want them to tell the complete full story that doesn't rely on DLC. And then if they do end up releasing DLC down the road, it wasn't necessarily part of the plan. I would be fine if they released a multiplayer DLC. Like, hey, you finished the story. Now, like, run around the world as this character and, like, after the story is concluded and whatever the after effects are. Because I think that would be something interesting to see them in the grand scheme of it. But one of the things that 15 ended up always, like, if you play all of 15, and I still haven't finished like the Arden DLC, and I think there's one DLC also that I hadn't finished yet, and so I'm planning on going back and doing that, because I actually, like, I enjoyed 15, but it just, you have to watch the movies and the YouTube and all, like, there's all these avenues of like, okay, now you finally get the full picture. And I want 16 just to be like, the game is all you'll ever need to get the entire picture, and then beyond that, after the fact, especially if it sells really well, hey, turns out like we went ahead and did something a little extra. We turned it into a Diablo game, in which that you can just run dungeons with your friends, and in this world of like, what summons are you taking? I don't know. That would be something that'd be interesting, to see. But that's just generally my thoughts.
I hope they're clear on when and where we're gonna get it continually like this. Like this summer 23 thing, one of the things that like I know people are frustrated with is like what's going on with 7R.
Right.
So like it's really hard when the roadmap stretches out and you show us these big beautiful graphics, because 7R was very similar. People were super hyped on it. It looked beautiful, and then it came out, and like there were people that were unhappy with how it came out because it was a remake. This is not. It has the ability to stand on its own, but then because it had a roadmap. So I hope it either doesn't have a roadmap. I agree with you there, or naturally the part of me just assumes from a business standpoint, you either have to have a roadmap or you have to have multiplayer.
Yeah.
That's just the cynic in me that says like games can't stand without multiplayer or continued content. A service model just allows for too much of a recovery on investment.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, let us know what you think. That was Chris's reaction and our discussion to Final Fantasy 16. Some connections to Final Fantasy 14 as well, maybe. And so who knows? Yoshi P could always do a collab with himself. Especially as it relates to Final Fantasy 14 and 16. So if that is Dalmood or some kind of a connection to it, that would be pretty wild. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Let us know your thoughts about the format, what you guys think about it, and we look forward to your feedback. But we'll see you in our next video. And until then,
take care.